Hey guys, welcome back to another Weird Wednesday. I'm Ashers and I'm here with a special guest. Special guest, would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm Victoria Jaye, and I am a demonic folklorist.
I'm super excited about this because we have had a lot of, actually, a lot of our guests lately. We've talked a lot about just different types of spirituality and things like that. Nobody's talked about demons yet. So that's super exciting. So we're gonna definitely dive into that. But first, how have you been? How's your week going? What are you getting into here lately?
It's been okay, although today was a little weird. There's been some weird bad luck energy kind of following me around, so that's been a little weird.
I
But
completely
mostly it's
understand the
been good. I've
weird
been working on
bad
the
luck
edits for my
energy
book.
that's
It'll be
been
out on
going on
Halloween.
lately. Nothing pressing, but just s- enough stuff to make you annoyed, you know? So that's been tons of fun. Um, it's just been a little thing. But I have an 11-year-old
Yes,
daughter. She started school this week.
definitely.
She went into middle school, so I assume it's just kind of
hmm
everything that has to deal with that is just going to not be okay for the first week or so. So we'll see how next week goes. All right. So speaking of bad luck, we've had some really fun technical difficulties so far. So let's see
Yeah,
if that continues.
totally not.
It's okay. People that listen to the show understand that there are just some things beyond our control, and that just happens sometimes.
Fair.
So anyway, my news item I wanted to talk about this week. Victoria, where are you from?
Uh, California, technically, it's a difficult question because I'm not really from anywhere. I was a military kid.
Oh, okay.
So I've lived all over the place, but I would say California is home to me.
Interesting. Have you ever been to Massachusetts?
I have actually. I was there in November because I went to the Borden house and stayed there with the Feminine Macabre group. And then we went to Salem the next day.
Wow, very cool. Well, I mean, that's cool because we're both involved in that. I'm newly involved now, so
That's awesome, though. Congrats.
we we have something to bond over. The reason why I bring it up is because I wanted to talk about the news going around about this little like turf war happening between the owners of the Lizzie Borden house and this new
Mm-hmm.
coffee shop that opened up. Have you heard about this?
I have, yeah.
So apparently there's a new coffee shop that opened up. It's called Miss Lizzie's Coffee something or the other, and the owner of the Lizzie Borden house is pretty pissed off about it. He feels like, he is being his basically his property is being stolen and used in a way. And it's kind of, I don't know. A lot of people are kind of angry about it, but I think it's kind of adorable, to be honest with you. That sounds weird. But so the owner at the Lizzie Borden house is saying that, it's basically the same thing if he were to go to like Orlando, he said, or Orlando or Anaheim and open up a milk shop place and call it Mickey's Milkshakes.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I just really butchered that sentence, but whatever. And I kind of understand what he's saying, but at the end of the day, Mickey Mouse is not a real person,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where things kind of get strange. Now, the owner of the coffee shop is like kind of taken aback by this because they've had nothing but good to say about the owners of the Lizzie Borden house. And as a matter of fact, he says that a lot of their employees are regular customers there.
Mm-hmm.
And he doesn't really understand why they can't really promote each other and kind of live off of each other and, hype each other up and, send customers to either or. I don't know. Do you have any opinions about this whole fiasco?
I personally think that the coffee shop should be able to use it because Fall River is a little bit infamous for this. And
Right.
yeah, why can't they all get along? I have not heard good things about the owners and that they're
Interesting.
being a little bit childish, I suppose, about this whole thing. So that's really where I'm at. I kind of get it, but I also don't. Because I'm like,
Yeah.
what does it matter? You guys have like people coming to the actual house. This is just sort of an offshoot of that.
Right. This is literally just somebody selling coffee. Like it doesn't
Yeah.
hurt you.
It's not, yeah, it's not
They're
going to
not
hurt you. Like,
claiming
what?
they're not claiming to have the ghosts of the Lizzie Borden house. They are claiming that it is a haunted shop, but haunted for a different reason.
Mm-hmm.
Allegedly, and I don't know. I go to these little small towns all the time, and they really, some of these tiny towns with all this lore really embrace, whatever history's there. Um,
Mm-hmm.
of course, the closest one to me is Point Pleasant in West Virginia. I mean, they have all embraced, not, well, they haven't all embraced the Mothman, but the stores and things like that certainly have.
Mm-hmm.
And they capitalize on it. And the Mothman Museum isn't like pissed off that there's a Mothman pizza down the street. They tell you to go have it. They're
Right.
trying to help build their community based off of this lore that they have there. And I don't think that that's a bad idea.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think it's actually a really great idea because it then points them towards the house itself, even if it's in an indirect way.
Yeah, and at the Lizzie Borden house, I think they were like, "Well, we sell coffee too. Do they sell like fresh brewed coffee, or is it like in bags? Do
I'm
you
going to be
remember?"
honest, I don't know because I didn't have any.
Fair.
But it's possible. Yeah, but I mean it's not an entire themed coffee shop, and I don't, I understand that this, yes, this is a real person and these are real people, but it is also kitschy. What's wrong with
Yeah,
kitsch? I love tourism.
me too. I love a gimmick. I love the hell out
Yeah,
of some
right?
kitchen
Like
gimmicks.
it's
Like,
fun, especially when it's but at the same time there is this like it's a horrible tragedy, should we be doing this? And it's like there's a solid point to be made there, but I don't think Miss Lizzie's coffee is doing anything wrong. I'd go if I was
yeah,
back there.
right. Well, right. I'd go stay at the house, then I'd wake up in the morning. I'd go to the coffee shop. I'd hang out. I mean, that's why. I mean, I don't. I guess I don't see how this could be bad at all. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then people that aren't familiar with the story at all, if they walk into the coffee shop and they have no idea what all this is about, they just think Miss Lizzie is a nice old woman.
Right.
Then there's an opportunity for them to sell them on the house. But yeah, it's a horrific murder that happened, a long time ago, and
Mm-hmm.
the ghosts are there or whatever, whatever advertisement. Just at the end of the day, I don't know. It's really shitty when anybody tries to like claim these stories, claim any type of ownership of these stories. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I hate that. I don't like that at all. A lot of the listeners know one of my personal things that I've investigated for a long time. Well, the key witness in it died recently,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm worried that people are going to try to capitalize off of that death, or change the story in some type of way going forward, and kind of be the pioneer of telling it, but telling it the wrong way. And that shouldn't be something that we should have to worry about with this kind of stuff. The stories are interesting as they are, and we should tell them freely and openly, even if that's in the form of opening a coffee shop and branding with it.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah,
what I
I
think
completely
anyway.
agree. Yeah. Like just can't we share a little like let's
Right.
go back to kindergarten for 5 seconds. It's gonna be okay.
I
But
mean,
they could easily support each other.
we're talking about a murder that happened over 100 years ago, at this point. And she was never even convicted of the murder, was she? I'm not too familiar. I mean, I'm a little familiar with the Lizzie Borden story, but I'm not like hardcore. Do you know if I don't think she was ever held accountable for
No,
that. I
I
think
think
people just
she was
assume.
acquitted, if I'm not mistaken. Troy Taylor has a really good book on it, but I don't believe she was acquitted, or I'm sorry, I do believe she was acquitted, but there was a lot of speculation that really just made her life a living hell. And
Yeah.
the story as it goes is that Lizzie passed by where her stepmother had been murdered, and I've been up that staircase. It's a very odd, like, thing, the way that it's set up. So she really, if she was not looking in exactly the right place, she would not have seen her stepmother's body.
Interesting.
So there is this element of, oh, did she do it or did she not? And it's like, I don't personally think she did it. I can't really explain that other than psychic stuff.
Sure.
And also, the story just doesn't really add up. I mean, it doesn't really make sense why she would have done it. She didn't really have a ton of motive.
Interesting. So is I mean, and this is again just because I've never been, is like the aspect of the haunt in the house itself, is some of it maybe attributed to Lizzie being innocent, but guilty by the common public, and that's the anguish, I guess, lives on. Not really entirely too familiar with how hauntings work, to be honest with you. I'm a very strong believer in ghosts aren't dead people, which is
Hmm.
shocking to some people. But is that kind of the idea behind it, or is it just simply that it's haunted because the whole family was murdered there? I mean, what ghosts are you expected to see at the Lizzie Borden house?
So truthfully, like we didn't actually see anything, um, but that's not one of my gifts in general. So
Yeah,
I
me
could
neither.
feel it very intensely. Um, but it was odd because there are times that I think you're completely right. Then there are times that I'm like, okay, this might be a dead person, right? But it's like
Yeah,
we all got our ideas in the paranormal. I try not to like be like no, because I don't know. I'm not I'm not dead. I am not, So
absolutely. Yeah, I say it all the time on the show. I have a personal opinion and a professional opinion. My personal
mm-hmm,
opinion changes a lot. My professional opinion stays pretty neutral about basically everything.
mm-hmm. No, I get it.
So, I mean,
So
you know,
the original question, sorry, I tend to get off
yes,
topic quite a bit, but
it's a
the
podcast. You're supposed to.
that's fair. That's fair. Okay, so the Lizzie Borden house is interesting because you can feel something there. It could be a spirit. I think it could be some type of thought form because of so many people believing they're going to see something.
Sure.
I'm not, I think there was a spirit there, but I think it was either the stepmother or the father. Lizzie is most likely at Maple Crest. I think that's what her house is called that she had built. But she's at the other one, we think, anyway. That one's not open for tours at the moment. But my experience was that it felt very electrical when this spirit was around. It made me very uncomfortable. And I was kind of peeking in, seeing what I was doing with this group of women. And then as we were going to sleep, because I was roomed with Alex Matsuo, we were very, I felt protected. Like
Oh, okay.
somebody had come in and just sort of made sure we were okay, that the girls were all right. And yeah, I felt very oddly protected. So
I
it
think
could have
that's
been
yeah,
Abby
that's
Borden.
awesome.
I don't know.
Yeah,
But
very cool.
I like to leave it up to interpretation because it's even possible it was Alex's mom. So, because that's what
Sure.
she thinks. So, yeah, I don't know.
Very
But
interesting. Did you sleep well that night when you were there? Did you guys just stay the one night?
incredibly well. Yeah, it was actually weird how well we both slept. Like, as if, I don't know. First of all, the mattress was amazing. Let's just be honest. But second of all, yeah, you wouldn't think you'd sleep very well in what's a supposedly haunted house, but it's one of the best nights of sleep I ever got.
I've heard that though about the Lizzie Borden house specifically. I've heard a ton of people that are just insanely comfortable there,
Yeah.
and even with crime scene photos all around, they are they're more than
Right?
happy
You
to
wouldn't
get to
think you'd
rest.
be comfortable there, but yeah, you are. There is a feeling of peace throughout the house, except for in certain areas. Now, in the area that Abby Borden died, I when I walked through that area, that room made me uncomfortable, and it was before I knew what room it was. So
Interesting.
there is a weird amount of just how do I want to put this, like sorrow
Hmm.
and fear, and there's like it's like a weird energy bubble right in the place that she died. That's
Just
the one
heavy
room I wouldn't
in
have
that
wanted to
room.
stay in. Yeah, very heavy.
Because it's all original. It's supposed to be original furniture and original knickknacks. I mean, they haven't really. I mean, they didn't recreate the scene. It is all what it's been. Is that right?
So I think all of the furniture is actually from the time period, but not the original stuff that was
Oh,
in the
okay.
house at the time. But it's period accurate.
Interesting. Hmm. I definitely, I mean, I'm very curious. I certainly want to check it out. You know, uh, the paranormal aspect of all of this. I know we haven't. Everybody listening knows this. You don't know this. I'm a Fortean investigator, so I investigate literally everything that's anomalous, all of it, and sometimes
Hmm.
that overlaps into the paranormal. But I started, one of my big interests was just being a teenager and going to spooky places, right? Like that was, chasing your local legends. That's what we did for fun. That's what
Legend
we do
tripping.
for
That's
fun.
what it's called in folklore.
So what's it called?
Legend tripping.
Legend tripping. That's what we did. I mean, that's what we used
Hmm.
to do. And because there's not much to do in Ohio, and I still am very much, like I said, I'm a huge fan of a gimmick. I'm still very much down to go to these places and do these things. It's just that now that I turned it into a job, I have to be able to justify spending the money on the trip.
Fair.
But
Still, it's all cool. Like I just go to
yeah,
go.
right, exactly. I still very much like I want to go sleep in the Lizzie Borden house, and now I want to go to the Miss Lizzie's coffee shop. So
Absolutely, yeah. Next time I'm in Massachusetts, I will be going to that coffee shop because I think it's fun. Now, this is a very sad story, and
it
it is
is, yeah.
truly awful what happened. But at the same time, I also think like it's the folklorist in me because I'm trained in folklore. That
Oh,
it is a way that we can heal from these types of stories by making them more fun. But at the same time, there is like, are we being respectful? And I do think the coffee shop is being respectful.
yeah, I mean that's why I said that's why I think it's kind of adorable because the coffee shop is just like, but we love you guys and we love your
Yeah, like
house and we love your
we love the
story.
house and the story, and maybe even paying homage to Lizzie and actually Lisbeth. Sorry, she doesn't. Apparently, her in later in life she went by Lisbeth, so we all try to call her that
Oh,
after that experience.
well, that's good to know. Good to know. Wow, I had no idea. But yeah, that's my news item for the week. I mean, now that we've kind of we've heard a little bit about kind of what you do. Let's go ahead and expand on that a little bit. Let me ask you the boring questions. You mentioned that you are a what is it? A demonologist, folklorist? Is that right?
No, so a demonic folklorist or
Demonic
demon folklore,
folklorist. Gotcha. Okay, I
because
understand.
I'm not technically a demonologist. I don't do what they do, and
Gotcha.
I don't feel I can really call myself that.
Sure.
But demonic folklorist is the easiest way to describe what I do because I study the folklore of demons.
Sure. Absolutely. So, how did you get into something like that? Were you just the weird kid? Was there one event that kicked you off? I mean,
I was
how do you
completely
fall
the
into
weird kid.
that? Same.
Right? I mean, it was my entire life. Yeah, like I was the kid who was reading about aliens and ghosts, and there was this really amazing horror wave that happened in the early 2000s when I was a kid. And it was like we had the Goosebumps TV show, we had Are You Afraid of the Dark?
Yeah.
Um, this one I really loved, Truth or Scare.
Oh yeah.
So that kind of started my folklore journey. But what actually the reason I got into demonology at all, because I do work in demonology, I'm just not a demonologist,
Right.
is because I had a possession experience when I was 19.
Oh. Okay.
It was not a demon, as my research actually proved, but it almost killed me. So it was something dangerous.
Interesting. Do you want to share that story a little bit more, or maybe there's somewhere where we can find the story to get into it if it's long, if it's a long one?
So I can tell a shortened version of that one,
Sure.
but the full version, as much as I really remember, because there are things that I don't remember that my family does. It is in my new book, The Black Hours: Modern Demonic Experiences in Folklore. It's coming out on Halloween, but that's where that full experience is. So the shortened version is that there was a period of time I had gone through multiple heartbreaks, so I was psychologically vulnerable,
Sure.
and something started to mess with me. It started with nightmares, and I was afraid to sleep. I stopped being able to keep down food. I would throw it up, and I just got worse and worse. And then something got in while I was medicated to go to sleep in a hospital. And I don't remember 3 days of my life. It's just gone because I wasn't there.
That's pretty wild. And were you in the hospital? I mean, once you kind of came to, were you still in the hospital at the time?
I had been moved from a hospital to a mental institution. And yeah, once I came to, I wasn't even wearing my glasses, which I cannot see without. So I'm like, could this thing see without it? It's just like a random question that's come up. But yeah, like I didn't have my glasses. I didn't even know where I was. I was holding a cigarette and I don't smoke. So I put it out and tried to figure out where I was.
Man, that's pretty intense, really.
Yeah.
My God. And that really kicked you off into getting into demon folklore.
Sort of. I mean, I had done research into it after what had happened. And then what actually happened is that I didn't have a good experience with one of the scholars on campus when I was going to school for folklore at USU, Utah State.
Gotcha.
And I didn't want to work with this person. So I was like, okay. And this was such a bad experience. I nearly cried on my way to like a folklore class because I just didn't feel this person was very kind to me. And I'm like, I'm not working with that person. So I'm walking to class and I'm like, what else do you know about? What else have you done a lot of research on that you could do your thesis on? And I was like, oh, demons. It just sort of appeared to me out of thin air in my head. And then that started me on this journey. And what I was interested in was classifying demonic behavior.
Sure.
So I created a classification system so that I could keep track of, in all of these different published narratives, and they're usually memorots. So memorots are first person narratives. So this happened to you, not like your friend or anything like that. And in these narratives, there were all of these patterns. And I kept noticing that in every book I picked up on demons, they would have like a couple different bits of phenomena, like, oh, sometimes they do this, sometimes they do that, maybe like 10 to 20 different things. But there was all this other information across the narratives. So the whole point of my research is to bring it together in a cohesive way. So I could look at all the different ways that phenomena manifests.
Interesting. I think it's really interesting. First of all, let me celebrate for a second. And I'm going to talk some mad shit about my previous co-host because he's old. And I'm so excited to have somebody on the show that's my age for once.
That's real.
You know, I mean, I'm just saying that he always makes fun of me all the time. He's like, you're so young. You don't know stuff. Okay, wow. Here's the thing is that I think it's really interesting that a lot of people in the field right now or butting into the field right now, a lot of us have this like kink for categorizing things and like organizing all the information that the people before us have gathered together, because there's we've noticed there's such a lack of these dedicated resources to put these patterns into place anywhere. So I think that's actually really cool and kind of a pattern in and of itself. So
right? I think it's awesome that all of these new people are popping up in the paranormal, especially because I would technically say that's more my field. I'm not exactly an academic, but I'm not one. So, but in the paranormal, we do. I think we want to do a better picture of what we're seeing. So I would definitely agree. And I think it's awesome that people are coming in with new ways.
I absolutely agree with that. I mean, I think, now like the next step, like it was collecting all these stories and now it's okay. We know how to collect the stories. Let's put them together in a cohesive way that makes sense. And then, go from there. I mean, are we as a generation going to go past that? I don't know. Hopefully, right. We still got time, but we'll see.
We'll see what we can do with the time we've got.
Exactly. So I think it's really neat that you've started to do something like that because I mean, fuck man, someone had to do it. When you say demon, I mean, let's just bring it back to very simple terms. What does that mean?
So I don't the way that I prefer to define a demon is not by what they are, because we don't know what they are. And religion provides a answer, but do we know if it's the right answer? We don't. So they are mainly malicious towards humans. They what else? Sorry, when it's not in front of me, I have trouble actually defining it.
That's
But it's like
okay.
they're hyper intelligent. They
Hmm.
hate humans. They react very negatively to Christian iconography. There are all these different things that they always do in these narratives, and that's how I define it. I usually tell people now how you tell a demon from a different type of entity is my own acronym, EPIM: evil presence, intensity, and malice. Those are the
Interesting.
things that are going to be there with every demon.
So they are very rude. They're not
Yeah.
they're not friendly. Do they I mean, so sometimes when people talk about demons, and maybe this is just religion kind of standing in the way of research, but some people, talk about supernatural entities that will befriend somebody just to then later maybe betray them in some type of way or use them in some type of way. Um, I know that's a very specific thing that I'm describing, but would you consider that a type of demon, or do you think that you just put those aside and they go somewhere else?
So I wouldn't consider that a demon, because demons are hateful, like from the beginning.
Gotcha.
There are stories of people having almost, it's not exactly a befriending, it's more like they did dark magic
Hmm.
to call this thing so that it could either take from somebody or hurt somebody. And
Interesting.
then eventually it turns on the magician. Although magician is kind of, I would say, practitioner.
Sure.
So
A
it
very
turns on
broad
them,
term.
and yeah, exactly. And like with magic, there are so many different terms that it's like I just sometimes forget to use the right one. But
That's
yeah, I'd
that's
say
okay.
dark magic practitioner. Um,
Gotcha.
and it turns on them, and they have to pay for what they had the demon go do. So
Interesting.
there is that, but I don't think so, because demons are such a negative presence, as
Hmm.
in, and not just negative, like evil and malice. And like when you're in the room with one, you don't just feel it wants to kill you, you feel it wants to torture you and then kill you.
Wow.
That's
Okay.
like the difference. And I love questions like that though, because it's it can be difficult to figure out, okay, is this a demon? Is this one
Right.
based on these stories? But the thing that comes up in every single narrative about any demon ever is that evil presence. I actually called my thesis "In the Presence of Evil," because
Okay.
that's the one thread like that has followed through every single narrative.
Interesting. What do they look like? What do demons, I mean, physically, do they have I'm sure they have a physical form sometimes.
Not really. Like they have to manifest on our plane, although like they are said to look very ugly, very like a corrosion of nature itself. Sometimes hairy is said to be how they look. Usually they form as a dark shadow of different consistencies. It really depends. But we don't really know what they look like. It's only the people in these narratives that this has happened to who have usually seen something, but that's all
Hmm.
in the system. So
Gotcha.
I can come up with like a possibility of what they look like, but
Well, like in
not a
your
full
case,
picture, unfortunately.
in your personal experience, it sounds like this was more of a it was certainly spiritual. Like there was no physical form. It was definitely
Yeah, for sure.
I don't want to I'm not gonna, I don't want to say mental, but yes, it was not, you didn't actually look at and talk to a demon.
No,
Gotcha. And that's
no,
okay.
mine was, I, and this is a personal thing. I think
Sure.
there was a demon involved in my possession because of how quickly I was broken down. but I can't prove that. It's just more of like a psychic feeling. There was phenomena like things like, because it would have been just so much easier if this had just been a mental illness or a mental break.
Right.
Could have accepted that better.
Hmm.
But there were things that happened to other family members that made us all go, okay, I don't think we can pretend that this is not supernatural.
Yeah, absolutely. That was actually, well, like I said, we have a connection in the feminine macabre. That's what I wrote about was actually trauma and the paranormal and how they're so closely related together, and how
Mm-hmm.
scientifically we're doing a disservice to people by just assuming that because they've experienced trauma that they're not also experiencing paranormal phenomena as well. Um, and I believe in that wholeheartedly as somebody who struggled with mental illness my entire life and who has had very strange experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Not someone that's prone to hallucinations or delusions or, thoughts of grandeur or anything like that in any other
Right.
time in my life, except for during those instances where something strange is happening. So,
Mm-hmm. That's so real. That's super
yeah.
cool though, because I think you're absolutely right. Trauma is not making these things happen. It's probably coming at a time when both are happening at the same time. Or
I,
maybe trauma
yeah,
opens us up more. It's
I,
possible.
I think I think either one of those could be true. I think that we, like I said, scientifically, again, we're doing a huge disservice by not studying those things closer. Because one thing that I've noticed in all of the witnesses I spoke to, that's one of my questions. Have you ever experienced any physical or emotional trauma in your life? And then they always say yes. It always
Right, fair.
happens. And then it's kind of, working backwards. Well, what happened first? Did you start having, high strangeness occur first? Did you have the trauma first, trying to figure out where that is? And I believe that a lot of these things play off of a traumatic brain, which we know is not the same thing as a healthy brain. We know they're very different. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so why is that? Is it because we have traumatized brains that we are able to process things differently? Is it, that, like I said, they prey on that itself? I don't know. But I would like to find out. That's I'm
Yeah,
curious
for
about it.
sure.
So
I'm honestly not sure myself, but it's such an important question to be asking.
yeah, I think it's really interesting. I think that, and here I'm going to sound like a dude bro for a second, like a Joe Rogan bro for a second, but like DMT, people have experiences with DMT that are, um, not just, hey, I'm doing drugs and I'm freaking out. These people
Yes.
have repeatable instances that are happening to different people that don't know each other, that have totally different experiences, and it's the same thing that they're seeing over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
So I would like to see us do some brain scans while people are on DMT, and what does that look like? How does that compare to other people that have had strange experiences that don't partake in something like that? um anyway, that's just me. It's totally off topic,
No, it's
but
awesome though.
that's I'm super interested in all that. That is going to take me years and years and years and years of study to actually come to any kind of conclusion, but it was one of the first things I noticed. It was one of the first patterns that I picked apart in all of it. It's all of the phenomena. However, it doesn't happen in cases of cryptozoology. When you're talking, like, anybody has a Bigfoot, they don't
Mm-hmm.
have trauma. And maybe the
Interesting.
reason why they don't is because guess what they're seeing? They're seeing a flesh and blood animal. It's not the same
Hmm.
phenomena. It's a different thing. You'll have that, but you do see it in people that have UFO experiences of some sort, and you'll see it in people with obviously paranormal experiences or something that doesn't quite fit in either of those two categories and is just weirder than anything. Um, over and
Wow.
over again.
Yeah.
So, um, but I had asked about the physical form of these things because I kind of wanted to ask. I don't know if it's something that you've come across, but something that I have come across repeatedly in cryptozoology. And I know that that's not your area, but a lot of people think that some of these creatures that people are seeing are a type of demon. Have you ever encountered anything like that or any claims like that?
I've come across them, but the truth is the phenomena isn't strong enough almost always to convince
Hmm.
me.
Yeah,
Demonic
I'd agree with that.
phenomena is like a 20 on a 10-point scale, always.
Sure. I
So
gotcha.
I can see why people are thinking that. Actually, there was a study going on. I can't remember if it was at USU or if they were just using USU's files, but
Hmm.
they had realized that kind of demonic crossing of demonic experiences when people thought they saw a demon versus Bigfoot were very, very similar. That the
Yeah.
actual feelings associated with it. So I was like, oh, that's fascinating. I don't know what it means, but it's fascinating.
Well, maybe it doesn't mean anything, you know? I don't. Just...
Yeah, who knows? Like, but almost always with people claiming, like, oh, I have a demon, I'm like, okay, tell me the phenomena. What's been happening? And there's so after my thesis was published
Hmm.
online, I had people mildly stalk me a little bit to try and talk to me before my
Sure.
website was up. And it it was difficult because most people do not want to hear, no, that's not a demon. They want weirdly some kind of validation that
Hmm.
this is exactly what they think it is. And I almost always have to tell them, no, that isn't what that is. It is clearly something that is happening. And I do want to be clear, like, I believe them because they're afraid no one's going to believe them.
Right.
But it's almost never a demon. I think there was one case out of hundreds that sounded like it could genuinely be demonic.
Interesting. Well, I mean, I completely understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
I
There are
get
just
it.
times you're like, no, that's not what it is. Like, I'm sorry to
No.
like change the way you think about this, but
Right.
unfortunately, paranormal TV has really added to it. Hollywood.
Yeah.
Now, every time somebody has a negative experience, it's almost now always called a demon, and that's very incorrect.
Yeah. It's just simply not. Yeah. It's just not the way I get it.
Yeah.
um.
I'm sure
You
you come
know.
across it a little bit. Yeah.
You know, if I mean, the most popular example that I can think of, just to kind of maybe put in a way that the listeners can understand, Starlink. Do you guys know how many pictures every week I get of Starlink saying, "Oh my God, I saw a UFO," um, and it's not a UFO. It's we know exactly what it
Mhm.
is. You
Right.
know?
Yeah. That's so
um,
fair. Like, I bet it's almost exactly the same thing of,
yeah.
no, guys, I know you're excited, but no, like, that's not what
Right.
it
And then,
is.
well, and then they, after you give that very simple answer, okay, well, what's your location? I'll put it into the Starlink locator. I'll show you that it was over. Oh, no, this thing was different. It moved weird, or it just disappeared, or it just, and it's like, but that didn't, no.
Yeah.
you know,
I do want to
um,
add, since we're already talking about this, my third book, right now I'm
mhm,
working on a Jinn classification book,
mhm.
but the next one is actually going to be UFO abductions and experiences.
Very cool. Very cool.
So
Because they are very similar to paranormal experiences,
they really are. And it's,
you know.
you can't help but wonder, is there crossover?
Right. Exactly. Well, I mean, and honestly, my UFO research is why I don't believe that ghosts are dead people.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of my strongest indicators there. Whatever that phenomena is going on there, and I can't tell you exactly what it is because I don't know. Because guys, if I knew, I wouldn't have to sit here and make money, have you listening to my podcast every week. I'd be a lot more famous and a lot more popular and doing other
That's so
stuff.
real.
But it's because that's well, I mean, but I genuinely believe that there's so much crossover between the two happening that they have to be related to one another. So I'm excited for that. I'm going to check that out for sure. Um, I mean, have you had people that share experiences with you that are clearly alien abductions or alien related that think that they're demons?
No, actually, I know a few people, like on paranormal Twitter mostly, who have claimed to have these experiences, and I'll be doing interviews with them.
Sure.
But no, actually, there's not a lot of crossover because demons seem to be somehow different. And I know about it from the demonic side, of course, but unfortunately, I don't have enough information to make a clear distinction as to why. But they don't seem to overlap because I've never come across any kind of case where it sounded a lot more like an abduction, because
Mhm.
the way that demons come across into the world through the processes of, or processes, if I learn how to talk today, infestation, oppression, possession, and also encroachment happens at the beginning when they're trying to find a foothold into people's lives, because demons can't just come in. That's also another huge misunderstanding with the public. Demons are not waiting around every corner for Christians or otherwise. They are very rare, like so rare that most people who are trained in this sort of thing never come across them,
Interesting.
like deliverance ministers and all that sort of thing. So people have to really re-envision what they think is happening, because it's not always a demon. It's actually like not even a demon 9 times out of 10. But yeah, I've never seen any crossover that sounded a lot more like an abduction.
Wow.
At
I
least not
think
yet.
that, yeah, I think you may find some of them crop up as you start vetting more people for that type of thing. I mean, because that is, I mean, like the fear and, all of that. I mean, it's sometimes it's very negative. It's not always. Sometimes it's a very good experience. But I've had people that are, essentially, well, like when you have the sleep paralysis abductees, where it's kind of like it could be either or, right? It could have been aliens, but it also maybe could have been sleep paralysis.
Mm-hmm.
They have that intense fear, and they just feel that these things are very malicious towards them, without any sort of reason to believe that. I mean, they haven't done anything, they're just standing there.
Fair,
It's-
yeah. And there was a folklorist named David Hufford who looked deep into sleep paralysis, old hag experiences. So
yeah.
I didn't do anything that had to do with sleep for that reason.
Mhm.
Everybody in my system was awake when this happened, because it's too hard to prove that this was something they experienced, because sleep is such a strange liminal
Yes.
state.
Yeah.
And I've
Yeah.
had hypnagogic hallucinations. They are weird.
I bet. I've been very grateful to not have anything like that. Sleep is a weird thing, isn't it? I think one of the first episodes I ever did on the show was about sleep. And just how strange it is.
Yeah. It really is such a strange like thing that we all do, and yet like you can have bad sleep, you can have amazing sleep, but we need it.
Yeah.
So, and it's such a part of our brain waves and all that sort of thing. So it's like,
Right. Most of
oh
us
dear.
don't do it right. I mean, it's
Yep.
just,
It's not good
and
when you don't.
I mean, there's like rituals that people have to get this, like, you practice
Yeah.
ritual to get to sleep. And then, you lay down and you're like, oh, I'm just going to pretend to be dead for 4 to 8 hours. Like, it's fine.
Right. It's fine. This is normal. Like, and it's, we all do it. And yet
Yeah.
people are having these strange experiences.
Mm-hmm.
There are times that it's clear there is crossover. Like, when I was in grad school, one of my professors, his cousin had somebody lean on them and it left bruises.
Interesting.
So that might have been something else.
Yeah. Well,
but
and
when,
people do wake
like,
up with marks and bruises, and I mean that, and there,
yeah,
it's, where did it come from?
exactly. Yeah.
Interesting.
There's so much there, but I didn't feel I could adequately, because I can't like actually prove anything. If you don't believe in this sort of thing, I cannot convince you. But the folklore tells us different things, right? So it tells us, even if this was completely not real, it would still tell us valuable things about the people that it was happening to, about our culture.
I had an interesting conversation with somebody the other day about anomalous phenomena and how it's more of a, not necessarily a social construct, but it is so rooted so deeply in our culture. that it doesn't, their stance is basically it doesn't matter if it's real or not. And you come across those people who are studying this stuff, whatever the topic is, strictly from a sociological perspective. And I think that's valuable. Um, but one thing that I mentioned to them is that when you're a researcher in this kind of situation, and especially if it's just you doing it, you kind of got to pick your battles.
Fair. Actually,
And
folklore completely sees things that way. We don't know what's happening, but something
right.
is. And it doesn't actually matter if it's true or not, it's whether people believe it's true.
So what do you have as personal goals? I mean, clearly you do this for a reason. What's your reasoning? Say you get up to your 80s, your 90s, maybe you make it to 150, who knows? But, when you die, what do you want to have accomplished? Or maybe you haven't thought about it, but maybe you have.
It really comes down to one thing. I want to help. I think these experiences are very frightening, and people are afraid that they're never going to be believed, or that they'll never find somebody who had this same experience. And I'd like to show people that though demonic experiences are not very common, they do happen.
Mm-hmm.
And that they could read this and feel comfort, because it's like, here's an answer to this crazy thing that happened to them. They just don't understand. That was the whole reason behind writing my thesis, because what had happened to me was terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't even a demon. So that means that if it had been, it would have been much worse. Much, much worse. So
Yeah.
I want to help. I want to bring all this information together also, so that we can study this phenomena in a much more cohesive way, as
Mm-hmm.
like a database, like the
Yeah.
beginnings of a database.
I'm all for that, 1,000%. Because I think it's time to start taking these things a little bit more seriously.
Mm-hmm.
Um, on a actual scope, instead of just popping someone with the therapist and the therapist rolling their eyes and going, yeah, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's very important. So I love that. Um, so we'll role play a little bit. Okay, so I'm somebody and I've seen a demon, or I've had a demon in my life, or I'm experiencing demonic whatever, and I
Mm-hmm.
come to you and I give you my story, and you go, oh, okay, yes, this actually fits everything that a demon would do, or whatever. what
Mm-hmm.
what do you then do next with that information?
I have to tell people up front when they email me or try to reach me in some way, I am not an exorcist.
Mm-hmm.
I am not a demonologist. I do not go into these places. I do not investigate it, because I'm a little too psychic, and I think I'd just be a hindrance.
Right.
Like, if I pass out, like, all the attention's going to be on me and we're not going to get anything done. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I tell people a bunch of different things, and it's up to them to start their own journey into this. Normally, I tell people, like, okay, your best bet is to bring in some type of paranormal group, but be aware of grifting. They're going to charge you exorbitant amounts. If they tell you immediately, like, if there's red flags, definitely, like, maybe go to a different person, because you're going to need to get evidence of this
Right.
happening. And paranormal groups are a great way to do that. And then you will most likely have to get involved with a church of some kind. It can be Catholic or not. It really depends on what's available to you.
Mm-hmm.
Or you could look into, how do witches deal with this sort of thing? How do pagans? It's up to the person. But I give them a couple different things that they could possibly do, because unfortunately and I do know exorcists. I'm trying to build what I'm calling the demon network, so that I can have people across the US, across the world,
Mm-hmm.
that I can be like, hey, I heard about this case. Would you take this one? Or so that we can all talk to each other. Demonologists seem to be a little bit isolated. So I'm
Well,
hoping to bring
yeah,
us all
I think they're
together.
I think it takes a special kind of person to get into something like demonology.
Yeah,
It's
it's not for the faint of heart.
terrifying.
It
I
is.
mean, right,
It
let's be
very much
honest,
is.
it's a really horrifying experience. And then, breaking down those social constructs around religion, especially being in America, breaking down, what we know about religion and everything. I mean, it's hard to get past those barriers to begin with to even bring yourself to want to.
Mhm.
So I can imagine that kind of difficult to find dedicated folks. But I mean, it sounds like you maybe do have some recommendations, in mind, or at least you're trying to build that to hopefully better help these people because, like you said, you can't do it. Um, but just confirming that they have a demon doesn't really solve their demon problem.
Right.
It just
And that's what I tell people.
perpetuates
I
it.
can only offer information. I can't help you with this, and I am so sorry. Like, because I'm willing to listen to people. Um,
Yeah.
there was a time I did phone conversations with people. I don't do that anymore because I had one person take it a little too far and call
Mm-hmm.
me at 11 o'clock at night. And I'm just
Mm-hmm.
like, we're not friends. Like, that's very strange for you to do that. Um, so I stopped offering that kind of as like a service, but I do I do try to listen because mostly people are just scared and they just want somebody to listen.
Yeah.
I can do. I can offer you information. I can tell you what the next steps probably should be. But yeah, I do. I actually feel bad that I can't do more, but it's just not something I'm capable of.
No, I mean, I think even the validation it speaks volumes. Like you said, sometimes people just want somebody to listen, and like you said before, most of these people that you talk to, they don't even have demons to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
So that's good.
See, like,
um,
there are spirits that are they're on like the scale of there's good, neutral, evil. And the way that you even conceptualize that is, are they friendly to humans or not? Or do
sure,
they not care?
sure,
Um,
absolutely,
so there are some that are very neutral. There are some that are positive experiences. So it's hard to figure out which one is which, right?
hmm,
But there are things that come up in certain narratives that I call markers that I'm like, oh, that's ringing off the alarm bells there. I think that's this. And I want to get to a point where I know so many different spirit types like intimately that I
right,
could tell somebody what they're dealing with, um, whether it's a jinn, a dybbuk, a what else have we got? Fairies, like that sort of thing. I want to know all of them, and I want to use this classification system, which was built mostly for negative supernatural experiences, and use it so that there's a deeper understanding for everybody, not just me.
sure. Well, I mean, most of the time, I'd imagine if people are having positive experiences, they don't really need the further coaching or the further help to rid
Fair.
themselves of it. So,
Right?
you
I
know,
know that's exactly how I think of it. I'm like, you guys probably don't need me to do that there.
yeah, if somebody else wants to do that, they can, but like not me. I'm just
No, and besides that, I'm drawn to the darker stuff because I find it to be more interesting. It's not more affirming or anything like that. It's just more interesting to me personally because I've been the weirdo my entire life.
right.
I've been
Yeah,
interested in the weird stuff. So,
I completely understand where you're coming from
right.
there. So I get it. Um, so you were saying that like demons aren't just like hanging around the corner, right? You're not just gonna encounter. Most people never encounter them at all. What do you think they're doing?
I mean, that's a good question. I'm honestly not sure, but
Sure.
we can speculate.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's what we're
I
doing.
think demons seem to be in like their own kind of corrosion. They're like the negative image of life, of nature. Um, I'm not sure what they're doing, but it seems like they're in these little balls of hatred. And when humans come across them or they come to attack humans, they're like directing that hatred outward. So
Okay.
that's how I sort of conceptualize that question, just because I'm not sure. And maybe it is like they're planning for the end of the world. Who knows? But they aren't really something that happens super often with humans. It does happen, but it's just not nearly as prolific as people think it is, especially like with Ouija boards, for instance.
Oh yeah.
I don't know how I feel exactly about it. I mean, I think Ouija boards, they're one of those things where you can use them safely. I don't personally, but that's because I have no interest in talking to anybody. I get
Well,
enough
sure.
talking from being psychic. Like I don't need more. So it's not something I do. It's not something I use. But I have a lot of friends who do. And they're like, no, there are safe ways to do it. You have to say goodbye and all these other different things. But I don't think what is happening is that people are coming across demons all the time. What it could be is that a spirit is posturing to pretend it is something deeply scary like that, to maybe feed off the fear.
Yeah, I mean, just think of like a human that's like time traveling, right? You go back in a time and you find these. It doesn't matter how far back you go. Just you find other people not in your timeline. I mean, would you be honest and tell them who you were? I mean, why wouldn't you make up this grand story about where you come from and what the world's like? And I mean, just
Yeah.
for shits and giggles, you know?
Why not? Like, I mean, yeah, like if I was a spirit, I think I'd like to fuck with people. It's just how I
Right.
am. So
I
I
mean,
can understand that. Or it could even be like down to because negative energy can manifest better
mhm.
than positive. So maybe they're just trying to build fear. And they know, oh, demons, that'll get people. They'll get scared. And then I can, manifest. So it's just I'm not really sure, but maybe there are some spirits who are like, oh yeah, I'm absolutely gonna fuck with these people tonight as they do the Ouija board. Or but the way I kind of say it is like there is not a demon waiting for little Billy to use the Ouija board for the first
Right.
time, like it's not nearly as common as that.
They get a bad rap. I mean, well, and that's the way that I see it. Like, they're not going to put out a children's toy that's going to riddle your life with demons and then get away with it forever. You know?
Yeah, I don't think so. But there is danger only in the fact that you could let something in. And if you didn't properly know how to use it, like I talk about it like
Mhm.
this. If you don't know how to use a chainsaw, that is very dangerous to you. Like
Sure. You don't know how
so,
to drive a car. That's going to be a bad
yeah,
time.
bad time. So it's like if you don't know how to use it, I tell people don't touch it. Learn how to use it. And
Interesting.
then you're not in as much danger. So that's probably why it's continued because people have learned how to use it.
Right. Well,
But
fair
things
enough.
could follow you.
Do you use any, like, do you personally use any tools of divination at all? I mean, it sounds like you don't have to. I mean, you've mentioned, being psychic a couple times that we haven't talked about it at all yet, but maybe we should. Maybe we should get into that.
Sure. Okay, so yes, I do. I've used dowsing rods before. They were fun at the Borden house.
Yeah.
But do I like I don't use them habitually. I like tarot a lot, but
Hmm.
yeah, that's probably about it just because I see it as me getting advice um, for what I need to do next, usually, or what's going on now, or that sort of thing.
Gotcha. So some of the things, just picking up on some of the things that you're saying, and you can absolutely correct if I'm incorrect. Now you're talking about psychic abilities. Are you clairaudient?
I am. Yeah.
Okay. Does it start and stop there for you?
I have a little bit of everything except for
Gotcha.
clairvoyance. Seeing is not one of my abilities.
Interesting. Because I feel like that's the most common, or at least the most common that people kind of pick up on.
Yeah. It's I don't even know if it's like common as much as that's what people think of.
Yeah, fair enough.
But here, I have to use the restroom real quick, so I will be right back.
Oh, okay, fair enough. I'll be here. So when did you discover that you had some type of psychic ability? Is that just something that's always been with you, or?
Um, I noticed it for the first time when I was about 8 or 9,
Okay.
but my mom knew I was because I guess I had told her, I'd come up to her. We were living in England at the time, which is not known for snow. And I said, Mommy, I had a dream that it snowed. And she's like, Oh, that's nice, honey, you know? And then it did. And she was like, Wait. So, and, psychic ability runs in our family.
So you have a very open and accepting family when it comes to all this.
Hmm. It's seen more in my family from a Christian perspective. I don't necessarily consider myself a Christian,
Sure.
but I believe in God. That's probably about as Christian as I get. Um,
Hmm.
so we see them as gifts, that we were given these gifts usually to help us through our lives. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's very cool. Well, so, I mean, just a lot of people don't have that. Actually, the climate of the last couple of guests, and like I said, we kind of touched on spirituality a little bit. It's interesting. We had a Satanist on. Right
Mm,
after that, we had a Jehovah's Witness on.
mm,
And then right after that, we had a Druid. So, and it was just
nice.
purely by accident. It wasn't meant to be a religious discussion, but the theme of like all those very fringe, I mean, because they're all very fringe religions, is that they had a terrible home life and terrible ties to Christianity. So it's awesome that you're an exception to the rule there. So I enjoyed that quite a bit. So who else in your family, if you don't mind me asking, who else has these types of abilities?
I did an entire episode where we did a psychic roundtable for my podcast, so you're totally fine. Um, my mom and my sister are. My dad's about as psychic as a mud clod, but he has had things happen because he's in proximity to us.
Poor
Um,
guy.
yeah, right. It's not a ton of things. It's just like maybe once every 10 years or something. So, yeah, but it's me and my mom. We're probably the most psychic, and my sister is her abilities are emerging.
Do you have any so is it just you and your sister, those are the only siblings you have?
Hmm.
I was just curious if there was a brother because I'm noticing a theme here. Do you have any personal beliefs or thoughts on the fact that you're all women?
Not really, if I'm gonna be honest, because my husband is also from a gifted family, and he's also very psychically gifted.
Oh,
It
okay.
could just pass matrilineally in my family.
Right.
It's possible.
Right. Yeah, that is possible. Fair enough. Fair enough. Some people believe that women have, they're more, since they're, I guess, not to get misogynistic, but let's do it for a second. Just because they're more emotional, right? So women tend to have these
Hmm.
gifts, and there's just kind of this stigma of like men, even though there are men that have them, that men don't really have them. Um,
I think men suppress them by accident.
I'd agree with that. Yeah, I'd agree with that.
So they're
I
not
think that.
actually, because they're not as in touch with emotion and the ability to tell when it's you and when it's
Mhm.
something else outside of you.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
But
And it's
men
just.
totally have these experiences. So it's just, I also think it's like family, because psychics seem to run in families
Mhm.
and having those abilities. So it, it's a possible, like, oh, maybe it skipped this generation and it'll go on to the next one. It's really hard to say, but it's fascinating.
It is. It's interesting, and I don't think anybody's ever really, you know, how do you categorize these things exactly? You'd have to have people being 100% truthful, and you'd have to ask damn near everybody on the planet if they have psychic abilities or not, to even get a pool.
Right.
But I would agree that I don't think that there is any particular tie to being a woman and having psychic abilities. I think men could just as well have them at the same rate that women do.
It's
But I do
possible they
think
process
genetics,
it differently.
yeah, I'd agree with that. I'd agree with that because, different things happen. one thing on the internet that people one cool thing on the internet that people talk about is dad reflexes. You know, dads, man, they can catch child for, with a blindfold
Mm-hmm.
on and from 50 feet away. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
it's
Yeah,
amazing.
it's pretty amazing. It's
You
thought
know,
also that everyone has psychic ability, but that
I yeah,
it's
that's
not as
another thing. Yeah.
developed.
Yeah.
But like when you get a vibe from somebody and it turns out that was a serial killer you just passed, stuff
Right.
like that.
The gut
It's,
feeling.
yeah, the gut feeling, like that is possibly everybody has the gut feeling. So
Mhm.
maybe we all have a modicum of psychic talent. It's just more pronounced in other people.
Yeah. Some people have to work at it. Some people it's like being an artist.
Yeah.
It took me a long time to understand that drawing was a skill set that anybody could learn
Mm-hmm.
to do.
Yeah.
But some people, they're 3 and they're drawing, masterpieces. And then there's me at 32 that can barely draw a stick person. Um,
Right.
I could probably do better if I tried, right? But I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's just not my
But you
area
got
of
to put,
interest.
yeah, exactly. You got to put like effort into it, I think, for
Right.
it to manifest in the way that you're hoping.
Yeah.
So yeah, I
And
think that's a really great metaphor for that.
yeah, I mean, yeah, I believe that as well, that people, just have to work at it if they want it. Um, I had another question and now I forget what it is. Okay, so this experience that you had, you've said a couple times, now you know that this is not a demon. What do you think it is? Can you answer that? Is that super secret and you have to read the book to know?
No, so I actually don't know, not fully.
That's
I thought for a while it could have possibly been Jinn, but there's a piece of phenomena that doesn't fit that has come up in other narratives because there was a girl who reached out who had a very similar thing happen, and then someone else did too. Um, I think it has something to do with the fact that I am psychic and that there were mirrors pointed at my bed for years
mm-hmm.
because mirrors are thought to be portals, which I never believed. Why would I believe that?
Right. Well, especially if
Now,
you've had them for years and nothing's happened.
exactly. Um, but when we moved to our place in Mexico, me and my husband, I had him immediately take off the mirror that was facing the bed, and he's like, "We could just like put something over it." I was like, "No, David, take it off now and take it out of the room." Like I
Interesting.
can't deal with it. And it's because when this was happening, I had an intense fear of mirrors. My psychic senses were very heightened,
Mm-hmm.
and I couldn't figure out why I was afraid of them. But it came up in other narratives because I asked this girl who had reached out to me, I was like, "Did you have mirrors pointed at your bed?" And she's like, "Yeah, I had several." And I'm like, "Okay, you need to take them out now." It just seems to be something that keeps coming up. But Jinn do not have a connection to mirrors. I've never come across anything that suggested they do. It's possible it's maybe a Dybbuk from Jewish
Mm-hmm.
folklore. Spirit,
Interesting.
they're thought to be spirits of dead people who are wandering. They're banned from heaven and hell. Um, but there is no, like, I haven't done enough research into that. That's actually going to be probably like my fourth or fifth book.
Mm-hmm.
For now, I don't actually need to know, but I know that it was something dangerous because it nearly killed me.
I think it's really I think it really speaks to a lot of people that do this in any type of professional setting. A lot of us do it because we've had strange experiences, whatever that experience is.
Mm-hmm.
In your case, it's this incident that you had. In my case, it's the Mothman, and somebody else's maybe it's Bigfoot. Who knows? Whatever name you want to give it. And I think that something that we don't really talk about because this is very personal to us is how much it helps us while we're helping other people and while we're curating our research and how we can draw different similarities to our experiences to others. And how that can really give us a fresh perspective on understanding our own experiences a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm glad that, you say that. I'm glad that you mention, similar experiences and how you've kind of come to different conclusions based on hearing other people's story, even though you lived it, It was hearing
Mm-hmm.
other people's stories that have helped you not necessarily figure out what it is, but rule out what it isn't.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the
Because
times that's
weirdly,
just kind of what this is.
right? I know, because weirdly you think that you're the only person this has ever happened to, even though you
Yeah.
know that cannot be possible. I did not realize it was a pathology
Hmm.
of some classification of spirit that I have perhaps not looked into just yet until
Hmm.
someone else reached out and was like, this exact thing happened to me. And I was like, what? Like that one made me go, oh dear. And it
Well,
also helped solidify it wasn't a demon.
that's what happened to me with my Mothman encounter. I had my Mothman encounter in 2016. I
It's
started
awesome.
studying the Mothman in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize until I was relayed a story in 2021 that that's what I had seen, because it was so similar to what I had experienced.
Mm-hmm.
Because you couldn't have told, and it just kind of left my mind. Personally, my experience is, it was quick. It wasn't, I mean, it was traumatic to a degree, but it was just very much, it formed in the room. I left the room. That was that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but all the circumstances kind of surrounding it and what I had learned about the witnesses to this particular creature made me realize that, holy shit, that is what happened to me. So it was weird. It was kind of like a subconscious tracking that I ended up doing. I didn't even know I was doing until
Right.
I realized
I
it.
think we think that way. That's just
Yeah.
how we're almost like trained to think. Possibly it's a cultural thing. But yeah, it's funny that you mention it like that, because in demonic narratives, people will almost always discount every single thing that they're feeling, hearing,
Yeah.
smelling until the moment they see something. That's when
Oh,
they're
yeah.
like, okay, maybe this is supernatural.
Yeah. Well, and that's, I mean, that's how I was in complete denial. I'm like, that did not just happen. I was always a very
Right?
scientifically minded person. Like I was skeptical of a lot. I believed in cryptids. It started cryptids for me when I was a kid, and I
Mm-hmm.
believed in that. But I'd been to haunted places. I'd been to, spooky situations, and, sometimes kind of weird things would happen, but you could just chalk it up to coincidence or whatever. And then when it finally happened for me, even still, I was like, nah, that didn't just happen.
Right? We try to convince ourselves that's not a thing that just happened to us, because even even when you're psychic, you're still doing that same thing. Like, let's see, what's one of my more recent ones? So, um, hell, what is one of my recent ones? This is a semi-recent one. I'll probably think of something in a bit, but
Sure.
I was downstairs. I was at my parents' house. I was staying for a bit, and then I went and I got something from the fridge, and I could just feel something staring at me. So I just, like, I always believe myself. So this is actually not a very good example of what
Sure.
I was saying, but I'll tell you the story anyway. I turned, I thought I heard something spoken aloud, and I was like, you want to run that by me again? It in fact did not want to run that by me again. So I just walked away. But like, I often tell spirits, no, this isn't the time. Like, I'm not here for this, but when we have something really bizarre happen, we're like, that didn't just happen, right?
Yeah.
And then
Every time.
you start to really think back, and you're like, okay, maybe it did. I'm trying to think if I even have one like that, but I tend to trust myself now. So it may take me a bit to come up with a real example
I'm
of
still
that, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
I'm very much in denial about a lot of things that I know that I'm capable of, but because again, I've been a very scientifically minded person, I'm just like, no, that's not the case. I just want to feel special, and that's why I think that, and it's not that.
Right.
These are things that are happening, but I'm like, nah, and I'm like, maybe eventually I'll work through that, and maybe I won't. That's my own experience to kind of take on, but I've certainly had a lot of strange encounters. I think it's so funny that you're like, I tell the spirits no a lot, because that's exactly what I do when I'm at home. I'm like, no, you need to get out of here.
Yeah, like,
And they do.
it's your place. You don't have to entertain this stuff if you don't want to.
Yeah,
You can
exactly.
just be like, no, that's you heard me. Like, goodbye.
Nope.
You know,
You need to get out of my house. You need to get your shit and get out of my house.
like, are you paying bills to be slamming my cabinets like that?
Yep.
So
It
yeah,
does.
like, but
It
you
happens a lot.
can tell spirits no. You can put up those boundaries because when it comes to, like, say, um, human spirits or spirits that don't have as much power,
Hmm.
you can just close off the boundaries. And
Yeah,
people have done that.
I've never had one like get in my face and be like, "What'd you just say?" It's never, it's never happened.
I I tend to do that. I tend to posture like I'm gonna go beat the ghost up or whatever, because it's like, you want to go, like, you don't want to
Right,
go,
right.
just because I
Not in
haven't
my
had very
house.
good experiences. Yeah, like, well, not all of them. Like, there are deities who have reached out, like the
Hmm.
Loa from Voodoo have said hi, just to say hi. I was reading a book about him. They were like, "Hey, what's up?" And we're here. And I'm like, "Oh, I didn't know you were real, but okay, you know,
Welcome.
welcome, I guess."
Thanks for
Sure.
coming.
But yeah, stuff like that happens to me a lot, but it's always the ones that are trying to get in for some nefarious reason. um we have a problem in my family because we have Jewish ancestry of
Hmm.
Shidim, which are technically a type of Jewish jinn
Hmm. Yep.
from that area. So we have issues with that. They've come up several times where they've been trying to get something out of us that maybe we didn't want to give, and it starts to try to oppress us. So that hasn't been fun.
And
But
you're like, no, you do. So, okay. So, how can you avoid these things? I mean, do you have any tips and tricks for how to either avoid being possessed by demons or avoid having even just nefarious spirits in your area? Is there a way to close that door?
I would say, honestly, the best thing you can do for yourself is to be healthy
Hmm.
as you possibly can be, with your mind, your body, and your spirit, because that seems to be the way that they get in.
Yeah, I'd agree with that 100%.
And
I
keep
think that there is
your space
something for
happy,
it.
you know.
I think that's why also I talked about this kind of recently somewhere. I don't remember where. Um, I've looked into like when people are dying, like leading up to people's deaths, and then near
Mm-hmm.
death experiences. But like a lot of people, leading up to when they're going to die, know it. Um, not just because like they've had a terrible diagnosis or whatever.
Right.
They just have some type of knowing about when they're going to die. And then because I've had weird experiences with my grandmother where she had announced that she was going to die, even though she was in good health at the time, and she died about 2 months later. But leading up to that death, my grandmother, she didn't have dementia, she didn't have Alzheimer's, she died because of COPD. I mean, she was, ill, but she was mentally all there, but she had very strange experiences leading up to that death. But maybe it's tied to the fact that she was physically ailing at the time and not doing well, and she was, for some reason they were able to make contact with her, whatever. I don't know. I'm just speculating at this point.
Right. It's hard to say because I had something very similar happen with my own grandmother. She knew she was going to die young. Maybe they're told at some point, so it's not a surprise. I
Hmm.
don't know.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, I wish, I wasn't who I was. I wasn't who I am now, who I was then. So I didn't do this kind of stuff. If
Right.
given the chance, if anybody close in my life ever tells me that they're gonna die again, I'm gonna like press them. I would be like, oh, how do you know?
Right. I know. There's a lot of hospice narratives. A friend of
Hmm.
mine was doing research on it. I think she switched gears from that, but she was doing like hospice narratives because her mom was a nurse in hospices, and there was a lot of very strange happenings around death that would just kind of
Yeah,
come out of nowhere. And I used to work in a funeral home. So yeah, like, there are strange things that happen, but they weren't super common because I was closing it off. I didn't want to have an experience in this funeral home, like, I just wanted to do
sure.
my job.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I mean, that's at some point you got to separate your job from, your personal
Yeah.
feelings, and that's the healthy way to do it. I have lots of friends that work in death, and one of my friends, he doesn't believe in the paranormal, and he transports bodies is what he does
Hmm.
when people die. So that's his job. But he doesn't believe in the paranormal at all because he works in death and because he's never seen anything strange, seen anything supernatural. But even like the setting, I mean, he does set it up like, you'll have, somebody's dead, but like their pacemaker's beeping every little bit to like let you know like something's
Yeah.
wrong, and it's quiet. Obviously it's eerie because death is just kind of generally uncomfortable for us. So I don't blame anybody that works in those settings to just switch it off, because you have to, I think, in order to
Mhm.
get through your workday and make your paycheck.
Yeah. If
um
anything, working in death made me a lot more see it as a much more natural thing, that this is just something that happens, and I saw it as, well, now they're gone and we take care of them. So
yeah.
I sort of saw it in more of a compassionate way, I think,
Hmm.
because yes, they're gone now. What makes them them is gone. But this is somebody that people loved very much. We're just
Oh
going
yeah.
to take care of them and make sure that their body's taken care of in the meantime. Um, but yeah, I can see why somebody wouldn't believe in the paranormal. But if you would never come across it, why would you believe in it?
Well, exactly. Right. Some people have to have that experience to believe anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that at the end of the day, that's just, it doesn't matter how many cases you present to them of any type of high strangeness of whatever category. They're not going to believe it until they have lived it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the same. I mean, we see that not just, but, paranormal happenings. I mean, we see that with people that like don't understand why we have welfare in place,
Yeah, yeah,
just
that's fair.
just to be honest, they had never had to struggle, so they don't understand the struggle.
Right.
They lack being able to sympathize with people. That's just
Mm-hmm.
part of it.
If
Um,
anything, it might be a lack of trauma.
it could be, which is weird. I can't imagine. Must be nice.
Right? No idea what that's like. I've had supernatural experiences my entire life. But actually, my
Right.
most traumatic experience was the possession. That was
Well,
it.
that's
Um,
not good, but that's good also, I guess. So,
in
what do you say?
sort of like we all have a little bit of trauma, but that was the
Sure.
most traumatic thing that's ever happened in my life. So it's like, I don't know. Sometimes though, these experiences can cause trauma.
Oh yeah,
So it's
absolutely.
that's the part I'd like to help with, mitigating that trauma so that people, because once you understand something, once you have categorized it and organized it, then you understand it better and
Hmm.
it has no real
Yes.
power over you.
It's a coaching of sorts. One thing uh that I deal with is horror movies. So sometimes
Mm-hmm.
I go on this horror movie podcast and we talk about like really awful, really extreme horror films,
Mm-hmm.
because that's my flavor. Because I think the reason why it's my flavor is because of the trauma that I've been through, and being
Mm-hmm.
able to like see it play out in a movie setting is safe for me, and it
Yeah.
helps me feel better in a weird way. There's a lot of people that like hate, they just cannot stand a rape scene in a movie. Whereas like
Mm-hmm.
Rape and Revenge is my favorite because it's a fantasy that I get to play out of something that I'll never get to do.
Mm-hmm.
And it helps me, whereas it might re-trigger other people. And both are completely valid.
I think so too. I write for Morbidly Beautiful. I write editorials on horror movies.
Oh,
Um,
awesome. Okay.
and like, yeah, I'm involved in the horror world too. But it's because it is an imaginative landscape and a playground
Right.
for my mind.
Yeah.
That's why I love horror. And of course, my favorite is folk horror. I love the idea of the old ways meeting up with new and modern life. Um,
I didn't view you as a full core person. I'm shocked by that. Oh,
right,
that's
shocked. Yeah, I know. It's pretty clear what I'm into. But also I do like supernatural movies, but not as much. It depends on what it is. If it's not, I have trouble with demon movies because I'm sitting there. I'm like, that's wrong. That is not a thing that happens. Like I
exactly.
can't
Yeah.
physically shut up
Yes.
when
That's
one's on because I know way too much about what I'm looking at. But if it's ghosts, if it's jinn, if it's some other type of supernatural entity, I'm all for it. I'm like, let's sit down and watch this. But I do think you're right. There is some people, for me, it's like scheduled anxiety because I have an anxiety disorder. So
me
there's
too.
that, right? It's
We have so much
real,
in common.
right? So that's why I like it. I also think that horror can be beautiful and artistic, and even these horrible, malevolent scenes, and also cathartic.
Hmm. Yeah,
We
absolutely.
get to experience things without experiencing them fully. So, yeah, I'm not super big on. Well, actually, that's not true. I really like American Mary, so maybe I do really like that genre. I'm not into like extreme stuff, but like yeah, like I could see it because she messed them up, and I was all for it.
That is a damn good movie. Yeah,
Yeah, it
that
was.
is. I love the Soska sisters. They're awesome.
They
Um,
are.
they're really and just they're genuinely good people, and like I
Hmm.
just I love that.
Yeah, same. Yeah, the horror world, it's filled with a lot of really really cool people.
It is, yeah. I mean, you have your egos. Don't get me wrong. When I met
Sure.
Tom Savini, I was really disappointed, but then you turn around and you meet Lloyd Kaufman, and there is not a better human on the planet. Like,
Hmm.
it's just the way it is. And for people that are well versed in blood, boobs, and guts, I mean, I guess could be shocking to people that aren't submersed in it to realize how good of people these are.
Right. Yeah. No, I feel the same way. Like, yeah, some of my favorite people, honestly, on the planet are people I've met like through horror Twitter or
Yes,
paranormal Twitter because there's a lot of crossover there. Like, almost everybody I know in the paranormal loves horror as well. It's not
there
everyone.
is. Yeah, there is a no, there is a big crossover. So you didn't get to meet my co-host, but he's a filmmaker in Chicago.
Oh, that's super cool.
That's yeah, and then he's also a not an abductee, an experiencer, I guess.
Hmm.
And so I mean, there is a lot of layover. But kaiju also, I don't know if you're a big kaiju fan, but that's also like a big one in this community. People really like big monsters.
Like, it's not a huge thing for me, but it's not a thing because I think monsters are so much fun.
Yeah. I mean, I don't
So,
know. Well, that's what I say. I'm like, I don't care about the stories. I just want to see the monsters tear up small towns. I just want to see
yeah.
the slashers kill the teenagers. I'm very simple.
Yeah, like it doesn't have to be. Well, horror is so fun because it can be as simple or as complicated as you want it to be.
Yes, it
So,
can.
like, I've
Yeah.
seen movies that were like about deep psychological things. Like, I don't know if you ever saw this movie. It's called Swallow. It has Haley Bennett in it. Came out
I
in
don't think so.
2019. It
Mm-mm.
is. It stayed with me, and it's because they so perfectly capture her state of mind as she develops pica. You know
Oh,
that
okay.
disorder.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay. That sounds like
and
something I would check out.
no, it's a really good movie. It's just it's a lot like, and it's not because I'm sitting here watching something traumatic happen on screen. It's because you feel for this girl and her trauma.
Wow.
So yeah, it was a really good movie. I recently wrote a thing on it. Like, I actually have pulled back from horror pitching. I can't get into the big um publications for whatever reason. It's okay. Like,
Oh,
it's I like what I do, and I like that I do have homes for my articles. Like, I write for Hera, Scream, and Morbidly Beautiful. But it's like, well, that's kind of sad, but I kind of need to focus on my book right now.
yeah. I
So
understand. It's hard to like because I'm so big in horror. It's hard to not turn that into a career to justify spending more time on it. But like at the same time, I have so much I'm doing to
fair.
not do
I
that.
get it. I had to pull back so I could focus on these edits, and I was overloading myself by pitching and like all this different stuff, but I also like the way that my mind thinks. I'm thinking about horror almost all the time.
Yeah.
So I'll get back into it and I'll keep writing. Like that's not going to stop, but it's yeah, had to pull
It's
back.
funny. It's funny because like so I do and actually I should advertise it at the top of the episode, but I'm really bad at marketing myself. Um so
Real. Same.
um for the listeners, I have a Patreon, patreon.com/it's Ashers. Check it out. This week we did every Sunday night we do a patron meetup, and we did meetup number 2 this past Sunday, yesterday, and it was awesome. We had a great time, and I don't remember why we got on this subject exactly, but I had trudged up an old project. So I actually made a horror hosting show at one point back in, I think it was like the very beginning of 2020. So my friend
Mhm.
owns an oddity shop. You guys have heard me talk about it before, the Secret Chamber House of Oddities and Artwork in Fairborn, Ohio. And in the basement of the oddity shop is a full-on velvet and leather sex dungeon. That's what it is. It's a dungeon.
Well,
And
all right.
yeah, and I recorded down there. And I was just kind of telling the patrons about it, and just, I was recording public domain movies, and it was interesting. I had this like, some people have this gift where they take stuffed animals and they mutilate them. Well, she did that, and I took one and I was using it as my like co-host, and it was just like really ridiculous because I would like state an opinion about the movie, and then it would pan over to the stuffed mutilated dog, and it would not say anything, and I would just like quietly laugh to myself. I mean, not really
That's
quietly.
awesome.
I
I'm
I
here
thought it was
for it.
fucking hilarious. Yeah, I thought it was
It is
hilarious.
hilarious.
And like the whole idea behind it, like the whole inspiration for the whole thing was, it was like Elvira meets Pee-wee, and like
I love it.
so if you guys are interested, I haven't released the whole things out on Patreon yet, but I did share pictures over on the Patreon of the dungeon itself. I shared just a teeny tiny little blurb of like some raw footage I had on my phone. It's ridiculous. Go check that out. But yeah, that's I might do it again one day. Who knows? We'll see. You got to keep things fresh, I guess, when you are the creative type and that's what you choose to do for a living. So
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
but
I have my podcast, and I haven't fully switched into like interviewing people yet, but I'm
yeah,
hoping to eventually. But it's like, yeah, like I totally get it. You have to kind of keep yourself busy when you're creative.
yeah.
So, yeah, no, I get it.
Yeah.
I just
Well,
do way
especially,
too
if you
much.
want to do it full time, I mean, you have to make money doing what you do. And so you have to create, and that's just a part of it.
Hmm.
I guess some people, I don't know how people take this stuff on as like passion projects, because it consumes my entire life. Not that that's a bad thing, but
Mm-mm.
I guess I can't imagine not attempting to make a career out of it and just doing it as a hobby.
No, that's fair. I don't know either how people do that, because I'm also doing the same thing, although I'm not like successful at it. Am I being paid for anything I'm doing? No, not yet.
Most of the time, no, right? Most of the time, no.
Yeah. We all have
Yeah.
day jobs
Yeah,
in the
that's
paranormal.
exactly. That's very, very true, and that's why, that's why it's important for people to like, monetarily support your favorite podcasts or your favorite whatever, in order to help those people become full time at what they do, and then they can give you better
Hmm.
content when they're full time too. That's nice.
That's true.
So I mean, something to think about. Well, I'm sure I have a million and one more questions for you, especially now that we opened up the horror box.
Yep. It's
That's
Jack's out of the box now. It's like that
yeah.
Krampus one. That's what I think of. He's out.
Oh gosh, I mean, now that we're there, um, what are all the things that you could do? What are all the things that people can consume from you? How can they support you and your endeavors? Where can they find you at? All that fun stuff. Plug away.
Yeah. Okay. So I've got quite a few things going on right now. So I have my site, demonfolklorist.com. I also have my podcast, which is called Demon Folklorist. Um, Easiest place to find it is like Spotify, but it's also on YouTube. But you have to search it by the, what do you call it? The title of the episode instead of
Interesting.
my overall title. It's odd, but it's through Paranormal Buzz Radio. That's also another way to find it. Let's see. I also have the Novelty Shop blog. That is my horror and folklore site because it got too cluttered on my original site, which is now just podcast and paranormal. I have my book coming out. It is on Amazon, but for some reason it's not actually searchable. So I'll have to like send you a link or something.
Sure.
But it's also available through Hear Us Scream store. So if you look up hearuscream.com/store, it's available through there as well. It's called The Black Hours, and yeah, it'll be out on Halloween.
Awesome. That is wonderful. And of course, the easier way for you guys to find all this stuff is just to click on the links in the description wherever you're listening to this at.
Fair.
Because
And I
I will
forgot my
make
horror
sure.
stuff too. Oops. Sorry.
Oh no, go ahead. Horror stuff too.
Morbidlybeautiful.com. I write for them habitually. Right now I'm working on Stephen King book reviews. So that'll take me a little bit longer because his books are a bit thick. But
Yeah.
I've done several pieces with them. I've done a couple things with Hear Us Scream, and then some more of them are going to be coming out. So, yeah.
Awesome. And then you're in which volumes of Feminine Macabre?
I didn't end up making it into a volume, so I was a little upset about it only because, not because like the, what do you call it? The opportunity was bad that I was given instead. It was actually quite wonderful. It was just that it was such a cool cover that I wanted to be in 4 so bad.
Sure.
But so I ended up being in the Feminine Macabre magazine, haunted magazine for October.
Oh,
so that was pretty cool.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, that's okay. There's, submissions are, I think they're getting ready to open, or they just opened, one of the two. So, I mean, the opportunity is always there. Amanda does great. So I love that she's created this space for women in the paranormal.
Oh, I know.
And,
it's amazing.
Just another genuinely good human, also a big horror fan. So,
Yep. I know it's a thing. It's a thing for all of us. But yeah, no, Feminine Macabre has been wonderful. It was the first thing I ever actually submitted to ever. So Amanda was instrumental in helping me feel confident enough to keep going.
Yeah. She's fantastic.
It was great.
But
yeah, I did want to be in 4 because it was so beautiful.
Oh,
so I was like, damn it! But maybe I'll be in a different one. It's okay.
That's okay. The first one I submitted didn't go through either, and I'm kind of glad that it didn't, because now that I read it, just even a year later, I feel so differently now.
Fair.
So.
Yeah. Going back to previous research, you're like, oh my god, did I really just publish that? Like, that's how I feel about my thesis. I'm like, oh Lord, there are so many things in there that are wrong.
Yeah, it is.
I understand.
You're like, oh, that's cringy. I don't know. Maybe I'll release that on the Patreon, you guys.
That's real. All the cringe. That's what Patreons are for. Maybe someday. Now I write for Paranormal Daily News as a folklore columnist. So I do way too much, as I've been told. I recently submitted an article to them, and they were like, let's break this into 2. And I'm like, okay, sorry.
Heard. That's why I felt that way when I was doing my Patreon meetup yesterday, because I just started talking about all the things that I do, and like virtually nobody knows that I'm doing all these things, and I just, like I said, I'm really bad at like promoting myself.
It's a mood. Like I know, I get it, because you're so busy that you don't really have time to promote yourself. You almost have to like get someone to promote you for you.
And you're like, how do I explain this super complicated thing that I'm trying to do in just like a little social media, especially on something like Twitter? Like, how do I condense that down to 180
you
characters?
Just make a thread. That's how you have to do it.
At this point, it's like, it's just not worth the time. So instead we talk about it during the Sunday meetup. So
there you go. like you gotta insert it somewhere best you can.
I just throw it out there like, hey guys, I'm doing this thing again. I guess it's great.
I guess it's great.
You should check it out.
I mean, I don't know. See what you think. Like, that's how I am. It's like, because people don't have to, like, if you're interested, cool. If you're not, like, I don't personally care. I do things literally because I'm interested in them, you know?
Yep. That's, well, and when I decided to make myself some type of personality, I guess you could call it in this field, I just wanted to be able to be me. I didn't want to be a character. I didn't want to,
Same.
pretend to be somebody that I'm not. I just
too
want to be who I
lazy.
am. Right, exactly.
I'm just me because I'm too lazy to be anyone
I'm
else.
not a good actress. That's like my biggest downfall. I can't act at all. I can't be anything other than me. I'm only good at that.
But that's a wonderful thing. Like, so clearly, like, that's a good thing because, like, you have your fans and you have your Patreon and all that fun stuff.
I
So
do. Yeah. I
more
guess
power
people
to
like
being
me.
yourself.
It still blows my mind. I'm like, wow, people actually like me. I've had people travel from faraway places just to come see me at places, and I'm like,
So
and that's not like
cool.
a humble brag. Like that literally blows my fucking mind. Like,
That's fair. I know. If I like had something like that happen, or if I had somebody like recognize me in the wild, I'd be like, "What?
it's
You did
crazy.
what?"
Every time it happens, you're like,
Yeah,
you know who
cool.
I am. Even like approaching you to be like, hey, you want to come on my show? And you're like, oh, I've heard of that. I'm like, oh my god, you've heard of my show? What?
Yeah, yeah. It's because, like, paranormal Twitter. Like, I see a whole bunch of different shows on there, and like, yeah, this is one of them. Because I
That's
think I
very
follow you. I'm not super sure anymore because Twitter is like either people have
weird.
left or it like
Yeah.
unfollows people that you did
Yes.
not unfollow. So I think I follow you on there. I'm not super sure now.
Mine follows people that I don't want to follow, and I'm like, what is
Cool.
happening? I don't know who
I
this
don't know.
is.
I know,
So
right? You're like, why are you in here?
it used to
So
be my
yeah,
favorite
I get it.
platform, and now it's just trash. I don't like it.
I know. I don't really like it either. I only use it because it's helpful in like promoting stuff.
Yeah,
But
it
I
can
still haven't
be.
gotten in the hang of threads yet.
Yeah,
I need
same.
to do better.
I want to like it, but I feel like I gotta do this. Like, I gotta learn all over again how this works and what's popular and how to hashtag. Is that even a thing on threads? I don't know.
I'm not really sure. Yeah, I know. Like it's hard to switch from one to the other. That's why I'm mostly on Twitter still, just because there are still so many good people on there.
Do you want
So,
people to follow you on Twitter?
I mean, you totally can. Like, yeah, everything that I have is under Demon Folklorist. That's even like what I write under for Morbidly Beautiful.
Gotcha.
So yeah, just go look for Demon Folklorist, all one word, and you'll find me.
Alrighty. Well, I will add that to the links here, and I'm just gonna go ahead and I'm gonna wrap it up because I feel like if I don't, me and you are gonna talk until next Monday, and I won't have an episode
Fair.
this week. So,
I get it
but
though.
thank you
But
so
it's been
much for
great.
coming on. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
of course. Thanks for having me.
And maybe we'll get you back on if people have more questions. If I have more questions, maybe when the book
Yeah,
comes
sweet.
out, we'll talk about it then. So, but that being said, guys, I'll see you back here next Wednesday.